Welcome to our presentation named Women's Place in Man's Life Cycle. We live in a world where men triumph over women in terms of a lot of categories: job opportunities, wages, political representation, sports, and etc. etc. Now, is it the physical strength that makes men more successful than women? Surely strength isn't the only basis which we measure everything against. But we cannot deny the fact that such discrimination against women is undoubtedly present to this day, especially in the corporate world. Now, some psychological theories suggest that such discrimination originates back to the time of Adam and Eve, where Eve got deceived and ate the forbidden fruit and also convinced Adam to eat it as well. So the story basically goes like this: if you make a woman out of a man, you are bound to get into trouble. In the Garden of Eden, the woman has been the deviant. Now, this begs the question, what is the woman's place in the man's life cycle? Sigmund Freud, who built his theory of psychosexual development, it is built around the experiences of the male child that culminate in the Oedipus complex. Oedipus and Electra complex is the feeling of desire for the opposite sex parent. Oedipus means the mom and the son, and Electra means father and daughter. Now, Oedipus complex is much more intense than the Electra complex, where son's attraction to his mother is quite more intense than the daughter's attraction to his father. Now, Sigmund Freud concluded that women show less sense of justice than men, and that they are less ready to submit to the great exigencies of life, that they are more often influenced in their judgments by feeling of affection or hostility. Sigmund Freud also suggests that female personality comes to define itself in relation and connection to other people, while masculine personality comes to define itself by separating their mothers from themselves, thus depriving their primary love, which is their mother. Freud concluded that male development entails a more empathic individuation and a more defensive firming of experience ego boundaries. Now, of course, everyone doesn't agree with Sigmund Freud. Nancy Chodorow argues that the existence of sex differences in the early experience of individuation and relationship does not make the women have weaker ego boundaries than men. Chodorow replaces Freud's negative and derivative description of female psychology, where she says that girls emerge with a stronger basis for experiencing another's needs or as one's own. Furthermore, girls do not define themselves in terms of the denial of periodical relation modes to the same extent as boys do. Now, of course, Freud and Chodorow overlaps in this kind of category, where they suggest that masculinity is defined through separation, while femininity is defined through intimacy. Consequently, male gender identity is threatened by intimacy, while female gender identity is threatened by separation. Now, based on observation on the behaviors of men and women, Janet Lever, who studied children's behavior through children's play, conducted an observation based on competitive children's games. Boys' games last longer, and it is likely to be boring. Boys' games also resolve game disputes efficiently. Girls' games doesn't last longer, and it is likely to be boring. Disputes among girls tends to end the game early. Now, Lever concluded that boys are fascinated with the legal elaboration of rules and the development of fair procedures for adjudicating conflicts. Girls have more pragmatic attitude towards rules, regarding a rule as good as long as the game repaid it. Girls are more tolerant in their attitude towards rules, and they are more willing to make exceptions and more easily reconciled to innovations. As a result, moral development is far less developed in little girls than in boys. The male model is better one since it fits the requirements for modern corporate success. The sensitivity and care for the feelings of others that girls develop through their play have little market value and can even impede professional success. Given the realities of adult life, if a girl doesn't want to be left dependent on men, she will have to learn to play like a boy. Now, you may say that maybe God doesn't want this kind of discrimination, but if you look closely, where you say, what if you wanted equality? But God said in this Bible verse, I do not permit a woman to teach or exercise authority over a man. She is to remain quiet. Now that we see that these people aren't exactly on the women's side, should we conclude that women are indeed inferior?
In her work, Carol Gilligan explores the contrasting narratives of male and female identity development inspired by Erik Erikson and Bruno Bettelheim. Erikson suggests that the male identity often forms through external interaction, while female identity emerges from intimate connections. This aligns with Bettelheim's narrative of male adolescence in tales like The Three Languages, where a son's unique understanding triumphs over convention. In contrast, female adolescence, often depicted in traditional fairy tales, involves a period of intense passivity following the girl's rite of passage. Female identity, as seen in characters like Snow White and Sleeping Beauty, focuses on finding a prince and marriage. This gender-based narrative showcased the role of gender roles in shaping life journeys. Furthermore, this disparities in male and female narrative reinforces David Macalat's identity that sex roles turns out to be one of the most important determinants of human behavior. Historical norms have centered on male behavior, marginalizing female experiences. This norm-centric view led to the perception of female behavior as a deviation. Nonconformity to traditional standards often resulted in the assumption that something was inherently wrong, perpetuating gender biases. Carol Gilligan's work highlights these gendered narratives, stressing the need for a more balanced and inclusive narrative of how individuals navigate life cycles regardless of gender. Delving into the complexities and conflicts surrounding women's pursuit of competitive achievement, Horner explores the challenges they face while striving for success within the framework of societal expectation and gender roles. Her study revealed that women exhibited anxiety about competitive achievement, a finding that significantly diverged from men's responses. The thematic apperception test, or TAT, used to study human motivation, often highlighted sex differences that complicated data analysis. TAT presents ambiguous cues such as images to generate stories or complete story segments, providing insights into how individuals interpret their experiences. Prior to Horner's research, it was evident that women construed the situation of competitive achievement differently from men, sparking a unique response or perspective. Drawing on David McClelland's work, which divided achievement motivation into the desire to approach success and the desire to approach failure, Horner identified a third category among women, the motivation to avoid success. Her studies revealed that women grappled with competitive achievement stemming from perceived conflict between femininity and success. This conflict particularly affected female adolescents who strive to integrate their feminine aspirations with more masculine competencies they acquired in education. Horner's analysis of a story that began with after first term final and finds herself at the top of her medical school class, and her observation of women's performance in competitive achievement scenarios led to a conclusion that when success is likely or possible, threatened by the negative consequences they expect to follow success, young women become anxious and their positive achievement striving became thwarted. She pointed out that this fear of success in competitive achievement activities, especially against men, emerged due to the anticipation of a negative consequences like social rejection and perceived loss of femininity. However, George Sasson proposed a different interpretation of this conflict. She suggested that women expressed conflicts might reflect a heightened perception of the other side of competitive success, recognizing the emotional cost associated with success through competition. This suggests an underlying understanding that something might be inherently flawed in a definition of success based on outperforming others. Erickson's elaboration of the identity crisis also came into play. He referenced the life of George Bernard Shaw, who faced a sense of being prematurely co-opted by a successful career he couldn't wholeheartedly endorse. Shaw's experiences of a success, rather than expelling him as an imposter, attached itself to him, causing a crisis. Shaw's eventual refusal to continue in a career he detested and his decision to follow his own path are not interpreted as evidence of neurotic anxiety about achievement and competition. Instead, it suggests, in Erickson's view, the extraordinary working of an extraordinary personality. Now we delve into the reason behind the conflicts women face when pursuing competitive success and how society perceives success differently in men and women. It begins by contrasting men and women's orientation towards success. Men often embrace a narrow vision of success, emphasizing rules and positional achievements, while women tend to prioritize personal and relationship oriented success. Horner's story illustrates this contrast, where the fear of success diminishes when Anne transforms into John. John's success is seen as a rule-based and separate from others, while Anne's success might not align with her desires. The text references Virginia Woolf's observation that women's values often differ from traditional masculine values. Despite this, masculine values continue to dominate, leading women to question their feelings and conform to external authority. Historical references, such as 19th century novels, highlight how women alter their perspective due to external authority, and similar issues persist in the 20th century, with women facing self doubt and individual and divided judgment. This self-doubt isn't solely due to the societal subordination, but rooted in women's moral concern. Women's sensitivity to other needs and their assumption of responsibility for caring for others lead to diffuse and sometimes conflicting judgment. This reluctance to judge other reflect other women's concern for relationship, a defining aspect of their psychological development. Women often judge themselves based on their ability to care, a role historically devalued by theories of psychological development. Focus on individual achievement in adulthood has devalued concerns for relationships and care. The reading also highlights the discrepancy between womanhood and adulthood, as certain qualities associated with adulthood, like autonomous thinking and decision making, are stereotypically masculine, reflecting bias towards autonomy over interdependence. It's noted that men in midlife are now recognizing the importance of intimacy, relationship, and care, concepts women have known all along. However, these qualities in women have often been overlooked or attributed to intuition rather than development. Women's moral development emphasizes the elaboration of this knowledge, shedding the light on obscured nature and significance of women development. This reading explores the criticism and paradox surrounding traditional moral development theories, particularly in the context of women moral development. Sigmund Freud and later theories like Jean Piaget and Lawrence Kohlberg have criticized women's sense of justice, perceiving it as a blind impartiality. Piaget's account of moral judgment largely omitted girls and assumed that the child to be male. Kohlberg, who derived his theory empirically from study of 84 boys, formulated a stage-based theory of moral development that excluded female. Women's judgment often highlights or often aligns with the third stage of Kohlberg's sequence, where morality is seen as interpersonal terms emphasizing helping and pleasing others. This perspective is considered functional for mature women, particularly in domestic roles. The paradox lies in the fact that qualities traditionally associated with the goodness of women, like care and sensitivity, are viewed as deficiencies in their moral development. A different moral conception emerges when we start with the study of women. It emphasizes the moral problem of conflicting responsibilities over competing rights and necessitates contextual and narrative thinking, contrasting with the formal and abstract approach of conventional theories. This alternative perspective centers on care, responsibility, and relationship rather than rights and rules. The construction of moral problem by women become a critical reason for their perceived failure to fit with Kohlberg's system. He emphasizes rights and justice based on individual rights, while women moral development is rooted in an understanding of care and relationships. This section highlights the disparity between traditional moral development theories and the emerging understanding when considering women's experiences, emphasizing the need for a more diverse approach that includes relationship, care, responsibilities alongside justice and individual rights. A woman in her mid-20s, a third-year law student, participated in a study on rights and responsibilities. Her viewpoint on moral problems offers a contrast to Kohlberg's focus on individual rights and justice. She acknowledges that not all opinions are equally valid, recognizing that some situation allows for different conscientious opinions. However, she firmly believes that certain situations have inherent right and wrong answers rooted in the nature of existence, emphasizing human interconnectedness and the importance of cooperation and harmony. She reflects on changing perspective over time, starting in high school with a belief in moral relativism. As she gained more life experiences, she realized the commonalities among people and the values that promote better relationship and personal fulfillment. Her moral understanding shifted towards prioritizing action that enhances life and relationship over individual rights. Her moral reconstruction centers on a deep sense of responsibility to the world. She values her connection and feels an obligation to contribute to making the world a better place, unlike Culper's subject, who primarily focuses on rights and their infringement. This woman's moral concern centers, centers on the possibility of not helping others when one has the capacity to do so. This response presents a different perspective on morality, emphasizing responsibilities, relationship, and the betterment of the world. It challenges the conventional emphasis on individual rights and justice, offering a more nuanced and interconnected view of moral dilemmas and ethical decision making. In this final section, the text delves into Jane Lovinger's fifth autonomous stage of ego development, where autonomy is seen with the context of relationship. In this stage, individuals learn to moderate an excessive sense of responsibility by recognizing that others also bear responsibility for their own destiny. This autonomous stage marks a departure from rigid moral dichotomies and embraces the complexity and multifaceted nature of real people and situations. It contrasts with Culver's principled level, which emphasizes rights and seek objectively fair or just resolution to moral dilemmas, potentially justifying indifference and unconcern. This passage underscores the reason why women may be uncomfortable with morality centered on rights and non-interferences, as it might seem to endorse a lack of concern. Conversely, from a male perspective, a morality of responsibility may appear inconclusive and diffuse due to its contextual relativism. Women's moral judgment illuminate the difference between the sexes, highlighting an alternative conception of mature characterized by a contextual mode of judgment and a different moral understanding. Women's distinct orientation towards relationship and interdependence implies a unique perspective and a different set of priorities in human life cycle. The myth, the myth of Demeter and Persephone, as, as referenced by McClellan, epitomizes the feminine attitude towards power and interdependence. This story is associated with Eleusinian Mysteries, a significant ancient Greek religious ceremony organized primarily by women for women. It symbolizes the strength, of interdependences and giving contrasting the prevalence focused on autonomy and individualism. The myth tells the story of Persephone's abduction by Hades and her eventual return to the surface, highlighting the cynical nature of life. The elusive mystery of women's development lies in the recognition of enduring significance of attachment and relationship through the human life cycle. Women's role in the life cycle is to safeguard this recognition, even in the prevailing developmental narrative celebrates separation, autonomy, and individual rights. The myth of Persephone underscores the distortion in view, emphasizing the interconnectedness of life, the importance of mother-daughter relationship, and the cynical nature of existence. The text concludes by urging life cycle theories to consider the experiences of both sexes and recognize the value of women's perspective to enrich their theories. And that's a wrap on Carol Gilligan's Women's Place in Man's Life Cycle. If you have any more questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Thank you.